Hello everyone, today we're going to be overclocking our Steam Deck. We're going to be taking a look at how to do that, and I will have links in the description, down below for everything that we're going to be using. And then we're going to take a look at some benchmarks to see if it actually makes a difference. And we're also going to talk about things such as temperatures, battery life, and yeah, basically see if it's worth it, So first of all, slight disclaimer. Just keep in mind that overclocking your Steam Deck can potentially void your warranty and may cause hardware damage. It can also lead to overheating, reduced lifespan, and other stability issues. So please perform overclocking at your own risk and ensure that you have adequate cooling solutions in place. Neither the creators nor the manufacturers of the Steam Deck are responsible for any damages or issues resulting from this overclocking, and always proceed with caution. You might get different results just because of the silicon lottery, right? I believe that I got incredibly lucky with my chip because I'm able to undervolt and overclock at the same time, but you might not be so lucky. So proceed at your own risk. And I think now it's a perfect time to tell you what you need to actually get the overclocking done. So this is what you're going to need. It's basically a USB drive, normal standard USB drive, and it is very important that it is formatted to FAT32 file system, because otherwise the BIOS is not going to be able to read it. And then I also have this cable right here, which is connected to a dock, so I can plug this in. You can get away without the dock if you have a USB-C drive, but they're not super common, so chances are that the one you have at home looks like this. All right, so the next thing you're gonna do is to open Firefox and go to this site. I will have a link for the description. All right, we're gonna navigate to the part where it says, I have backed up my BIOS, can I unlock the options now? You're gonna download this zip file. You're just gonna click on it. And now it's going to give you three files, which I'm just gonna extract into my new USB drive. I'm just gonna take it here. All right, and now we can close this. All right, so now we can actually just turn off the Steam Deck. So we're gonna go ahead and do that and shut down. All right, we have now turned off our Steam Deck. So next step we're going to do is to hold plus and then the power button at the same time. And then we're gonna let go only of the power button, wait a couple of seconds, and then let go of the plus button. So that's going to boot us into BIOS mode. So now we can use the trackpad and the right trigger to select. So we're going to select boot from file, and we're going to find our drive. So I call mine OCSD. So I can just click on this and then run it. And then this is going to start happening. So it's going to start running a line of code. It's going to be very fast, and then it's going to send you back to the file explorer. Once you're here, you can just go back and then click on Setup Utility. So this will have set up different stuff for our BIOS. This will have modified our BIOS. So we're just going to click on Advanced, and we're going to scroll, and then we're going to see that we have new options now available. So if you have updated to the latest BIOS, you are going to be able to see all of these options, but you're not going to be able to go past these values. So what you're going to do now is simply select these two, and then the input number, I just did 20, but I have tested one by one. So I did 16, then I did 17, then I did 18, then I did 19, and then I did 20. And that's where I found my stability, because past 20, it didn't really work super well and it kept crashing. So I just left it at 20. Keep in mind that this will depend a lot on what chip you got. Like if you got lucky with the lottery, with the silicon lottery, you're going to have a better time running this, and you might even be able to push it to the absolute maximum, which is 29 watts. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to leave it at 20. not only because that's the limit that I was able to hit, but also because I think it's a very good balance on battery life and performance. Then I was also able to undervolt my CPU to minus 50 megavolts. So yeah, that's also pretty cool. And then here, this CCLK max override, normally it's going to be set to auto. So just click on it and then change it to manual. And then I set the maximum of 4000. This is for the CPU. So that means that the CPU is allowed to go up to 4000 megahertz. And then the other one, GFX CLK max override, same thing. You switch it from auto to manual, which is the GPU basically. And I have allowed this to go to 2000 megahertz. So I would remind you that the stock settings are 3500 megahertz for the CPU and 1600 megahertz for the GPU. So we have overclocked quite a bit. So once you're done, you're going to click on this button and it's going to save. So then it's going to prompt you to exit the dialog. You're going to click yes, and now it will reboot. All right, so we now have an overclocked Steam Deck. So now I think we can go and take a look at some benchmarks and yeah, talk about the performance there. All right, now this step is completely optional. Like you can skip it and it will work regardless. But it's something I like to do because it gives you more control over your Steam Deck, which is Decky Loader. And I will have a tutorial linked in the video. So if you want to learn how to install that, click on the video that's popping up right now and you should see it. All right, once you have this installed, if you open Power Tools, you're going to see an option called Power Play Limits. So because of what we did in the BIOS, this will now allow us to change this to 20 watts. So we are going to be able to take advantage of that overclock that we just did. And in case we are playing a less demanding game, or we just want to play at less frame rate for whatever reason, you know, conserve battery life, whatever, we can just switch it back. And it's like the overclock has just been undone. So I think this is a pretty powerful tool. And yeah, I do recommend having it because it gives you more control over what you're doing and what you're not doing. And one last thing that you need to do is to set the governor to performance, because otherwise this won't work and it won't go past 15 watts. All right, so now that we have that, let's open a game and see the difference. All right, so we're now in the ship and we're going to see what sort of frame rates we can get by looking at this part of the game. So right now I am sitting at 15 watts. As you can see, the consumption in the top part of the screen, the CPU is consuming around 4 watts and the GPU is around 7, 8. But what will happen now is that after increasing this to 20, we're going to see that the consumption increases by a lot. So as you can see, it's now rising. CPU and GPU consumption together, it's around 17, 18 watts. And battery life has obviously taken a hit because we are consuming around, we went from around 22, 23 to around 28, 29. So it is obviously a big difference and you are going to notice that. But if you have no issues with the battery just being short or lasting less time, you should be okay with it. This can be the difference between going under 30 and staying above 30 in very specific scenarios and in very demanding scenarios. So basically, to sum up, you're going to see an increase in battery life of around 6-7 watts. You are going to see a battery life decrease of around 20 to 25%. And then you're going to have an FPS increase of around 10%, between 5 and 10% depending on the game. So it's up to you to decide if that's worth it. So after running several tests, we recorded an average frame rate of 47 FPS on the stock settings. The gameplay is smooth, but there are occasional dips during intense action sequences. But when we overclock the Steam Deck, Helldivers 2 runs at an average of 50 frames per second. And while it might not seem like a huge jump, the gameplay does feel smoother and those pesky frame dips are less frequent. Now moving on to Metro Exodus. So after running several tests, we recorded an average frame rate of 32 frames per second. The gameplay is decent, but there are some noticeable stutters during graphically intense scenes, and there are some situations where it dips below 30. And with the overclock settings, Metro Exodus runs at an average of 34 frames per second. And while this might seem like a very modest improvement, the overall experience does feel slightly smoother and the frame drops are less pronounced. And finally, I would like to take a look at Counter-Strike 2. So running with stock settings, after running several games, we recorded an average frame rate of 67 frames per second. Again, gameplay is smooth, but there are some moments during intense firefights or when someone throws a smoke where the frame rate drops. In comparison, the overclock settings run at an average of 72 frames per second. So this increase results in smoother gameplay, especially during those critical moments where every frame rate counts. Right, so now you have seen whether it's worth it for you or not to overclock your Steam Deck. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and see you again in the next one.